Great Scott! If my calculations are correct, you are listening to this before your fantasy football drafts have taken place. I've been to the future, and those that followed the advice from the Fantasy Footballer's Ultimate Draft Kit had a spectacular season and withstood many victories. It's almost as if Biff had given each of them a copy of Gray's Sports Almanac. I'd highly recommend heading over to www.ultimatedraftkit.com without any further delay.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
What's going on, everybody? Jason's wearing a Back to the Future t-shirt.
It is, well, it's a Fantasy Footballers t-shirt, but definitely looks like a Back to the Future shirt.
That was quite the intro.
Doc Brown.
Nice to have Doc Brown in the house.
Doc Brown knows what he's talking about, people. He has been to the future.
And the future is now because the draft kit is out.
It's live.
Yeah.
UltimateDraftKit.com. It's up.
Hit me.
Yes. The draft kit is out. That is the big news. A lot of work went into that bad boy.
A lot of work still going into that bad boy. Updated frequently.
Will continue to throughout the entire summer.
Some features even still to come.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, ultimatedraftkit.com. Check it out. It is now able to be seen. It was all pre-order for the past month and a half. It is out. We're updating it all the time. A lot of people ask, do you update it during the summer? Yeah. It's not a magazine.
You're darn right we do.
This bad boy's getting updated all the time. So check it out.
It lives.
We got a good show today. We got Jake Ciely from the Fantasy Sports Network, the All-In Kid. He is on the show. We're talking some differences between his rankings, our rankings.
Just getting some Ciely takes.
Yeah. Well,
Mike,
he's great.
You sound
he's great.
terrible today.
Do I? Is it coming through?
It's coming through hot.
I'm pushing through, man.
Let me put it this way. How are you doing?
I am okay. It was a very long night. The Wright household.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this.
Well, there was sometimes when kids go to school, things get in their hair and their bugs and they ruin your life.
We didn't know if we were going to be recording today.
Yeah, but
because we didn't know if you'd make it in, but you.
Well, we decided we can like clean everything, you can bleach everything, or you can just burn the house down. We went with that option. So currently looking for a new residential area.
I can't help but picture the scene from E.T. where they,
Yes, that is exactly what it's like.
Wearing those type of hazmat suits.
This might come up in the show after the show, I'm sure.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah, as long as it doesn't come out in my house.
On
that's
YouTube.
For sure. All right. We'll get to the quick question here in a minute. You guys can preview that if you look at the doc there. Connect with us on jointhefoot.com. Our fantasy football community. You get an extra show every week, exclusive content. We got a bunch of giveaways on there. In fact, the first giveaway on jointhefoot.com is June 6th. You can follow us on Twitter at the FFBallers. If you do that, you'll be able to tune in when we do Periscopes, which we did yesterday.
Yeah, very successful.
About 300 people were on there with us live.
Super fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Just answering questions for an hour, fantasy questions, questions about the show, questions about Mike's beard.
Yeah, there was many questions
about the beard. We're also on YouTube, where you can subscribe to the show, the Fantasy Sports Network, as well, and Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and yada yada.
The Snapchats and the...
Yeah, and if you have a question, today's a mailbag show. We're talking to Jake Ciely. We're also answering questions from listeners that they submitted to us via the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. There's a submit a question button, and we have a voicemail hotline as well, which is 302-464-TFFB. So without further ado, let me get into the quick question, guys, and it is a simple one. This is I'm checking in again.
Did something happen?
No.
Okay.
No,
we're
it's June 1st,
temperature
and this
check.
is our Josh Gordon watch. June 1st.
We need a drop.
The first of every month.
Yeah, we do. We need a drop for Josh Gordon.
Like a CNN situation room, like
there you go.
Josh Gordon watch.
Josh Gordon watch. It's June 1st. Basically, the question is this: has anything changed for you? Do you believe he'll play this year? Do you really have no idea?
I have no idea, but I still think that he's going to play this year. But I heard, I think it was Rich on the Dynasty Nerds podcast. He was talking about Josh Gordon, and the guy has gotten in trouble every single year, like through college into the pros. Every year there is an incident with him, and
Well, he's turned it around now. I mean, he's only hanging out with Johnny Manziel.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I want to believe in Josh Gordon. I still believe in Josh Gordon, but man, the history that he has presented for me is not allowing that to stay a strong belief.
I will say this for the quick question. I am still drafting Josh Gordon very late in most of my MFL 10s
because he's worth the chance.
I mean, the other guys I'm getting there, are just as risky of never putting up a point on my roster. I'm talking about like your last pick if he's still there, and the upside is I've got a possible top wide receiver, but I don't believe he comes back, even with that stated, just because you've seen in the NFL recently. The guys that mess up for a long time, I mean, they just don't get reinstated. The NFL doesn't want them to be reinstated, and I don't think I've seen anything from Gordon to say that he's really taken that step and that leap. And when you get to the point in time where, and this scares me even for Martavis Bryant, where you have had this many strikes, it's not like, oh, I just needed a little punishment and then I will get over it. It's like, I'm not convinced that these guys will see NFL action.
Yeah, you get to the point where it's not just can they get over the NFL rules in return. It's can NFL teams now get over their baggage and be willing to offer them a contract. I would say Hugh Jackson and what he's trying to instill in Cleveland is another strike against Gordon's return. I have been of the opinion that I thought Gordon would come back after 2 or 3 games. I am starting to move away from that, but again, he's worth – see, in my MFL 10s, what I do is I draft Jerome Simpson with the very last pick, and then I cut him.
Just because you hate Jerome Simpson,
which you're not even allowed to cut people in MFL 10s, but I write in and I have them drop them.
Jerome, this is all.
I'm making this summer about Jerome Simpson.
Jerome Simpson had the one play against us where he flipped over. Did he flip over
Washington?
Washington?
He can't catch, and everybody out there knows he can't catch. He's been collecting paychecks for not being able to catch for many years.
He's a gymnast.
Yeah, he's a gymnast. He should be in the Olympics. Let me ask this final question. I can't help but see this small McFarlane of Rob Gronkowski across the table from me. When does Rob Gronkowski start teaching classes with the NFL Rookie Symposium on how to party and not get suspended and not get into trouble?
Well, first,
because if Johnny Manziel or Josh Gordon or Darrell Washington, any of these guys just did it the way Gronk did it, which is you win titles, you don't get in trouble.
Yeah, I think that's.
Is he just a playful?
No, I think what it is you know when the right time to do things are. I tell my kids, like, I love being funny and silly and all that, but there's a time to party and there's a time to be serious. And I can promise you, when they're playing football and they're at Patriots camp, Rob Gronkowski is not messing around and coming in drunk and doing these things for Bill Belichick. That's not. He knows, oh, we just won the Super Bowl or we just went to the Super Bowl or whatever. I'm gonna go celebrate.
That sounds about right for the Patriots.
Right.
I was just remembering Aaron Hernandez. Sorry.
Yes.
One second. All right, let's get into the news.
He partied a little different.
Oh, come on.
News and notes from around the league.
Hey, before we get into the news and notes, I just want to take this time to remind people, podcastawards.com, the fantasy footballers, through the help of the Foot Clan, we have been nominated for the best sports podcast and the People's Choice, but we still need the help of the Foot Clan to push us over the top, and like Sylvester Stallone turning the hat around backwards.
It really is an us thing, right?
Yes.
Because this is a people's choice.
Because we vote for ourselves too.
I was just saying, because we only count as 3 votes via email.
Like when your votes, if your votes bring this trophy, it's bringing the trophy to you. You know what I mean? Like
and we will keep it for you.
Yeah,
here.
we're gonna host it here. I mean, we're not gonna make it send it on the rounds.
The Stanley Cup.
No,
but
you can come see it.
But so you got to go to Podcast Awards. You got to do it daily. And on top of that, if you're gonna get an email. Verify your vote, please. At some point in your voting process, screenshot that bad dog, tweet it at us with hashtag FootClanVote. You will be automatically entered to win. Not only could you win a Le'Veon Bell jersey.
Signed,
thank you. A signed Le'Veon Bell jersey. You may win a spot, the first spot in the Listener League, Fantasy Footballers Official Listener League this year.
Yeah.
So let's finish this. And so we're almost halfway done by the time you're hearing this. So let's take it home, Foot
That's
Clan.
right. Yep. Voting ends June 12th. So
Okay, yeah.
every day. You can do it every day.
Every day I'm hustling.
There you go. All right. Hey, the first bit of news here that we have for you. Did I already hit the news drop?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I'm a little under the weather too, so I'm about I'm about at 85%.
We're going down,
We're going
America.
down.
I feel pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
For
That's good.
now.
Well, you're wearing an actual
Yeah.
championship belt upside down. So
Am I really? Oh,
um,
darn it. It is upside
All
down.
right, America. It is actually upside down, though. It's not a joke. He got zapped. So, first
All right.
bit of news. ESPN Seahawks reporters. What? Oh,
well, it's the news that Thomas Rawls will.
Yes.
It's not likely to play in the preseason. I want to hold this bit of news because I want to ask. We're asking Jake about this. About
okay.
Thomas Rawls. So,
Okay.
but the news is that one of the Seahawks reporters basically doesn't believe Rawls will play in the preseason.
That's
What, that concerns you?
yes. It does concern me. It concerns me from the fact that I think he needs that time to really cement himself as the starter. If the team feels like they have mojo moving through training camp and preseason with maybe it's C. Michael, maybe it's Pro-Size, I don't know. But if
Alex Collins.
maybe it's Alex Collins. If they feel like they have something going, then I don't know that they would just say that Rawls has the clout to just say, okay, well, you're like Marshawn Lynch. It doesn't matter. You go in. Where if they have a good thing going, I don't know if they'll change.
If you're a guy like me, who in our league of record has Thomas Rawls as one of his
I would feel shaky.
3 keepers, you would feel shaky?
Yeah,
That was the question.
I'm not jumping off the ship yet. Just saying that this news is you're gonna have to watch him.
All right, let's talk about ESPN's reporter. What is this? Jeff Legwold said the Broncos like Mark Sanchez more than you think.
That's interesting.
So do I.
I think they have to.
I've said this. I think Mark Sanchez is very fine for that offense. And all you need is very fine. Have you seen Peyton Manning? I mean, last year, he was just regular fine.
He was not even fine. He was terrible.
He was bad.
I mean, he was leading the league in interceptions by a
On
wide
purpose,
margin.
On purpose. All right, ESPN's Todd Archer believes it's still possible the Cowboys would trade Darren McFadden.
That's nuts, man. There was apparently
Well, you're not trading Alf after Alf gets signed.
There was reports that they were getting offers for both McFadden and Alfred Morris after they grabbed Elliott.
Better not be the Seahawks calling.
Oh,
Give me the shakes.
that's a mess. But so that's interesting as terms for the handcuff
Yeah.
in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, because we've said on the show, McFadden's the one to own.
Oh,
because
yes.
third down work, he could get some of that until they feel comfortable with Ezekiel Elliott's pass protection and how he feels in the scheme. I don't think it'll be long, though. I think Zeke's going to be out there a lot.
Yeah, he will.
First-round wide receiver Josh Doctson hurt his foot on Tuesday. Apparently hurt his foot is in quotation marks.
Yes. It's just worth monitoring whenever someone hurts their foot. Teams are never very forthright.
X-rays came back negative.
They say, he'll be back in maybe 7 to 10 days. He's going to miss the OTAs or the rest of them. But I've also heard many reports of, he's coming back next week because he has a foot injury all the way to the end of the season, and he never plays the rest of the season again. That's not what I'm saying about Doctson, but you never, ever want to hear about a foot injury, especially this early.
All right, Jeff Fisher news.
Ooh,
Jeff Fisher believes Tavon Austin can double his 52 catches. I think this is just interesting to talk about Tavon Austin for a second because
Yeah, I think it is.
he did surprise me last year.
He's a value right now.
He's
where
a running
going.
back.
Where he is a running back. It's funny because some of those players, if you're on a website, say like Pro Football Reference, great website, and you're looking up player stats, they automatically sort based on, is he catching the ball or is he running the ball? And when you go to Tavon Austin's page, it's like his running stats come up first as if he's a running back.
He's 52-52.
There you have it.
52 catches, 52 attempts on the
Wow.
ground, 435 rushing yards.
That's not bad, man.
So if he believes that he can increase those PPR numbers.
If
Let's say Fisher is, I don't know, wrong about something, and instead of 104 catches, he catches 65, and he gets 434 on the ground.
Last year, he was actually a valuable wide receiver in fantasy football. It was difficult to predict because you never really wanted to put him in the game.
Right.
But especially in certain leagues, I mean, you want to talk about a best ball league where they use him around the goal line in kind of bizarre plays and running plays that you don't see coming. That's how he got several of his touchdowns last year. And so I think if I'm in a MFL 10, he's going way too late for what he can produce on a irregular basis, which is kind of fine.
And Gurley helps him on the ground. Don't make any mistake there. He's the kind of guy like Percy Harvin was, where you run jet sweeps with him. You're keeping, all these guys are stuffed in the box to stop Todd Gurley, and you surprise defenses with quick screens and those type of plays. He's a weapon if they would use him as a weapon, and they did start to do that last year.
Even if they're not going to double his catches. He's not going to get over 100 receptions.
No way.
But
that might be a good team goal.
If Tavon 100 completions.
Goff put the 100 up.
If Tavon catches 75 passes?
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
He becomes interesting.
He becomes very interesting. If he caught 75 passes with those rushing numbers, you'd start talking about it. You'd be talking about him and Jarvis Landry in the same breath. Baltimore.
You're skipping the Nick Foles one.
All right, Nick Foles is skipping OTAs.
Nick Foles has gone
protest.
Gone full Sam Bradford.
This can't be true.
It has to be true because I want it to be true.
Did him and Sammy Bradford talk to each other about this? I tweeted about it earlier. I just said, who does he think he is? Sam Bradford. I mean, go out there and win the job. Jason, do your Sam Bradford impression again. I can't remember how it went.
How did that go?
No. Do your best Nick Foles.
I actually have the audio for Nick Foles.
Oh, you do have that one?
Is that what you want
Let me find it on the...
Yeah.
Okay, here, hit it.
I'm not going to come in today. I'm going to stay at home and drive a rookie quarterback. This is ridiculous. That was the audio. That was yesterday. Audio
live from Nick Foles' hotel room.
Yeah. On the floor. All right, Baltimore Suns Jeff Zrebiak.
Yeah.
Considers Kamar Aiken to still be the Ravens' quote best option as the number 2 receiver.
I told you. Kamar Aiken.
I told you. I love this world of fantasy.
Nothing has happened
exactly.
yet.
I told you.
Tell
me once he's on the field.
And I will.
Now Jeff Zrebiak, his whatever his name is.
Look.
People, I love fantasy football.
Kamar Aiken is just being a tossed into the garbage, and I don't think he deserves to be there at all.
Yeah, well, Kamar Aiken is.
We'll find out.
He's okay. It's you. Anybody could say that the ex player on the Ravens is going to be the number 1 or number 2. I mean, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Rashad Perryman, or is it going to be Kamar Aiken, or is it going to be Steve Smith, or is it going to be
Wallace?
Mike Wallace? I mean,
Ben Watson.
I can say it will not be Mike Wallace.
Yeah, that's true. So can Mike Wallace.
Well, we're gonna get We're going to get into, because of everything that the Foot Clan's been doing for us lately in voting on Podcast Awards, we wanted to have a mailbag show, answer as many listener questions as we could today. But before we get into that, we want to take a second and thank Fantasy Jocks, an awesome sponsor. We have personally shopped at Fantasy Jocks for years. Mike used to get his big old championship rings there.
Yes, I did.
First of all, if you're a listener of this show, there's a good chance you got a hashtag Foot Clan title, and you need to commemorate that with, like me, the big championship belt or the championship rings, or get your league a trophy. Get your league a trophy for the loser. We've got like a little, toilet seat trophy. You can get all sorts of things at Fantasy Jocks. You can engrave them and have that all done year over year. They've got some really cool stuff.
Well, on the draft boards are really their big thing.
Draft is coming up, and a live draft board makes the best day of the year even better. So you won't believe what all they have there. Go to fantasyjocks.com and use the promo code BALLERS, and you'll save 10% off your order. So do that right now. Unless you're driving, do it when you get home.
fantasyjocks.com. Use the code BALLERS. There's always good stuff that comes along with that coupon code.
Ballers?
Oh yeah, just try it wherever you go.
All right, so we are going to let's chat with Jake Ciely of the Fantasy Sports Network. Jason and I recorded this interview earlier today. Mike was dealing with the drama in the house, burning down the house.
The CIA was at my house.
Burning down the house.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk to Jake. We'll play that interview, and then we'll get into the mailbag.
You talking to me?
The fantasy footballers are now excited to bring on Jake Ciely, the all-in kid himself, award-winning, accurate writer for Roto Experts and part of our brotherhood on the Fantasy Sports Network. Jake, how are you this fine, beautiful day?
I'm doing terrific. Even with no mic here, I'm doing terrific because Chick-fil-A's got their free app giveaway today, so I got my free lunch.
Oh, that's great.
So we just want to look at some rankings. We've been talking through them a lot. We just released our Ultimate Draft Kit, which has all of our rankings in there. And so we were looking at your most recent rankings with tiers and just wanted to bring up a few names. And the guy I'm going to lead it off with is somebody you have right now in Tier 4. There are many question marks around him. There's been different news coming out of late, and that's Thomas Rawls. You have him at RB24 right now, and so kind of give us some perspective on why you have him ranked there. What do you see his possible outcomes being in 2016?
I actually think there's a wide range of outcomes here, and 24 is just because I don't feel confident, and I love the guy they drafted in CJ Prosise. I'm probably one of the biggest supporters you'll find out there for CJ Prosise. I think that he can be a full down back, although even if Rawls is healthy, he still will be in the passing game plenty enough to be, I said, at least an RB3 in PPR leagues, and I think that he could even have RB3 value, flex value in standard leagues. But my biggest concern is still, as of today, we haven't had a lick of good news. It's not even like, oh, he's getting back to practice or the healing's going well. There's been nothing, and they drafted Prosise, they drafted Collins, they had an undrafted free agent. They're still talking about Kristen Michael, which we don't need to get back into that situation. But I'm just looking at the fact they have a ton of options. They drafted 2 more. We haven't heard any good news. I just don't know that he's ready for week 1. Now, if he's ready and if they're going to give him 20 touches a game, he can easily be in a top 15 running back. So he does have that talent, but I just haven't seen anything so far, especially with the moves they've made in the offseason to say, hey, I want to trust him as my top 15 running. I don't even want him in the top 20, as you can see.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing, right, about, it's June 1st here today when we're talking to you, and you have to kind of weigh the risks and the unknowns when you put these early rankings together. Now, if Mike were here with us right now talking, he would bring up Chris and Michael, and that's all we would discuss for the entirety of the interview. So we'll prevent that from happening. But a lot of question marks with Rawls, but then you had, the end of last year, so that's where people are having the hard time ranking him. I definitely understand that. I think we're big fans of Prosise too, just unsure of how often and how much they're going to use him. So
yeah, Prosise is a guy, he looks great. A lot of comparison to a guy we love in David Johnson. Do you see that comparison for Prosise? Do you think it's fair?
I think it's a fair comparison. I called him 90% David Johnson. He's not quite as talented, and there are some concerns because he has concerns with, which is funny because he's a pass-catching guy, but he has concerns with drops and handling the ball. So there is that aspect, and especially if you're a rookie and you're not holding on to the ball, that's going to play into the downside of Prosise. But that's something that can be straightened out. If you're talking about one of the areas of a rookie getting things straightened out in the NFL, I would probably want it to be fumbling and not something else because, as we've seen, I'll go all the way back to Tiki Barber. We can figure these things out with running back. So I do like his upside, and that's why I think that even if Rawls is ready to go week 1, I still think we'll see enough of Prosise that he'll have a Gio Bernard type of value.
Yeah, that's good. So David Johnson, speaking of David Johnson, he's a guy we love. We had him on the show, and we catch a little bit of flack sometimes because he certainly seems, when you look at those guys who are going super early, like he does have a couple of the question marks that could make you bust. Now you are a 3-time top 3 most accurate guy, and you have David Johnson ranked as RB2. So for all of us David Johnson truthers, explain yourself.
It's funny. Yesterday on Twitter, somebody was like, well, if you take out that game against Philly, and if you do that, and Chris Johnson, I'm like, I hate when people do that.
I do too. I hate that.
Yeah, take this game out and don't factor in this. And if you account for, you can make anything you want with stats.
Take out all the long runs. If you take out his 70-yard touchdown run, his yards per carry is terrible.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah. For that one big game, if you eliminate that. But look, David Johnson, if you just take the weeks where he was starting, he was the number 1 running back, even in standard, by 4 points per game over the next closest, which was actually D'Angelo Williams last year. But for looking at what he can do, I've always loved his talent. Going back to last year's draft, he was my second-rated running back going into the draft, only behind Todd Gurley. I know that Chris Johnson is back, but give it a break. Chris Johnson only was there starting because the team wasn't ready to trust a rookie in David Johnson, who they didn't spend a high draft pick on. So it's not like there was the capital there that we see of the Todd Gurley where they wanted to invest early. So once he got his chance, we saw what he can be. I have no concerns about this. Chris Johnson probably spells him a little bit, maybe 5, 6, 7 touches a game at most. And at this point, Andre Ellington, we all know he might see the field for 2 or 3 touches and then be hurt in week 4.
Yeah, exactly. No, DJ is definitely a guy we are not afraid to draft here. Let me talk about a guy that I am afraid to draft, that it seems you are not afraid to draft. And I think amongst us at the Footballers, we've got different opinions. I believe Mike is high on him. I don't know where you stand, Andy, but that is C.J. Anderson, the guy who has duped me before because of the potential, but he hasn't gotten the workload. But you've got him at RB11. He's an RB1. So why are you confident in him?
Well, I'm laughing over here because it still has not ended to this day for the fact that I ranked him number 1 at running back last year. I can't get away from it. People are still cursing me this day. So, you know what the funny thing is I could probably rank him anywhere I wanted and people would just dismiss me because of what happened last season. But look, I know I said the same thing last year, and I know we're going right back to the well, but he looked terrific in the second half. Actually, especially the last couple games of the season, including the playoffs. He looked like the C.J. Anderson we were all excited about for last year. And, you know, the factors were, the running back behind Peyton Manning is always great. Obviously, that didn't play a factor there. But, you know, I look at this team. They're going to be run more this year. It's looking like we might actually be looking at Mark Sanchez as the quarterback. So you got to think they're going to be more run heavy. You still have Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, which are going to keep defenses honest. And, again, I just go back to the fact of once he was healthy, once the offensive line had some type of semblance, it was doing a decent job in the second half of the season, we saw the real C.J. Anderson. There is huge bust potential after what happened last year. I'm not ranking him number 1 at running back, but he's still an RB1 to me because this is his backfield. That being said, because
that's a good, very, very nice. Hedge it.
I will say, look, for the concerns of him, a lot of people don't understand this. He actually hasn't been a picture of health. So if I'm drafting C.J. Anderson, similar if I'm drafting Le'Veon Bell, I'm looking very hard at Devontae Booker, who is my number 3 running back going to this draft late, to maybe handcuff him. I'm not a big fan of handcuffs, but situations like that where you have the guy coming in who should assume the bulk of the carries, that's where I would probably take Devontae Booker if I drafted C.J. Anderson.
And that's what I was going to ask you. You know, you mentioned Preseason earlier and how much you had confidence in him. I was going to ask how you felt about Devontae Booker. He seems like he would obviously be an affordable handcuff for fantasy owners, and I assume you're more dismissive of Ronnie Hillman having any role back there.
Yeah, I think everybody is at this point, at least smart people.
For years, we try to do that.
We tried. Denver kept trying to throw him down our throats, but so hopefully, I think they finally realized, because he seemed like one of those late, we'll sign you just for depth type of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of wide receiver situations before we let you go. I want to talk about.
Oh no, I'm not letting him get off without my talk on tight ends.
You do have a tight end.
So we got
discussion.
some wide receivers and tight ends.
For the next couple hours. No Kelvin Benjamin is somebody who. I'll be frank. I just have a hard time getting behind. I don't think you have him unreasonably ranked by any means. I mean, you have him at as a 2. I worry about consistency, and I'm unsure of what we'll see from that offense. Obviously, everybody went into last year thinking he had no weapons. When Benjamin went out, Funchess didn't play a huge role. But what is your overarching kind of feel about the talent of Kelvin Benjamin and what he can bring from a consistency standpoint?
Well, yeah. Why you have to throw in the consistency part? That's
just to make it difficult.
That's the downside of Kelvin Benjamin. Look, the thing is with him is if Ted Ginn can do well in this offense, I'm pretty sure Kelvin Benjamin could come back and do well. That's all I'm saying. But with Kelvin Benjamin, it's all about being the red zone threat. That's what I liked about him. As the rookie, you saw him. He put over 1,000 yards. He had the 8 touchdowns. So I'm looking at 9 touchdowns. So I'm looking at that to possibly repeat this year. But it's going to be the consistency factor, where this is why he's 20th and not near the top 15. Because similar to guys in the top 15, where even in the soft weeks you get 5, 6, 7 points in a standard league, a little bit more in PPR. He'll have some weeks where he only gets targets too, and that's what's really going to hurt you. That's why you want him as a wide receiver too. And I would actually prefer, you're probably not going to do this in a lot of drafts, but maybe if you go wide receiver with your 3 picks, you can get him as your third. And I would love that. But as best, I still don't want him as anything more as my low-end wide receiver, too. I wouldn't want to – put it this way. I wouldn't want to wait on wide receiver for my first guy and draft the Brandon Cooks and partner him with Kelvin Benjamin.
Does his return negatively affect Olsen's red zone presence?
I don't think so. I think maybe you take off a little smidge. It depends on how much if Funchess gets on the field more. I think that would – you have Funchess and Benjamin both on the field. I think that would hurt Greg Olsen more than anything, because now you have 2 big body, similar type of guys who are basically giant tight ends at the wide receiver position. I think that could hurt him. But just Kelvin Benjamin himself, I'm not too concerned, because Greg Olsen's still always going to get his. Cam Newton loves Greg Olsen.
Yeah. And Greg Olsen really has never been the red zone. I mean, he's not going to put up double-digit touchdowns. That's not where he gets his value generally in most years,
Right.
So speaking of that tight end position,
Giant tight ends.
The giant tight ends, the best of the best. I have been really, really high on a guy. I was high on him going into last year, and he got injured. Then he got traded to the Saints, and I really, really like what we see in Coby Fleener. I think I've got him ranked as my 3rd or 4th tight end, and right now you've got him at tight end 10, and Ladarius Green, who's got great upside, at tight end 9. So I am just curious what your take is on what we're going to see from Coby Fleener out of the Saints offense, in part to for our listeners who know my Coby Fleener love and my belief in where you can get him, and he's probably one of my main targets. Maybe I'm wrong, so speak some truth to people on where I maybe am overlooking something.
I don't really have that big of a problem where you have them. I just prefer the people in front, because I have Delaney Walker, Gary Barnidge, Kelsey, Thomas, Ertz for everybody listening. I think that Walker and Barnidge both still believe to be in the top 5. I think that Barnidge is going to be a huge part of the Cleveland offense, because they need options. And I know they drafted they drafted all the rookies they could at wide receiver. But at the same time, you look at what Barnidge did last year. He was second only behind Gronkowski.
Barnidge is great.
Yeah, so I think that he deserves to be in front of him. When you get to the Kelsey, Thomas, Ertz range, which are the 3 ahead of Green and Fleener, I don't have a problem with that. I could actually see Fleener finishing 6th. I could see him finishing 13th. It's just a risk of the fact of, is this the truth of the Saints of what we saw last year of how much they went to Ben Watson, and the same thing with Fleener? I think he's going to be a great red zone option. I just don't know that you're going to get the consistency. He's similar to Kelvin Benjamin. He's Kelvin Benjamin at the tight end position. I think that's what you're looking for this year. So he could get double-digit touchdowns, but I think the same with Ladarius Green. I just have Ladarius Green confidence a little bit more in how much he's going to be used, because we don't have Martavis Bryant. Now, if Martavis Bryant was playing this year, I would have flipped it. I would have had Fleener ahead of Green.
Yeah, it's so hard, too, with those middle, maybe 3rd-tier tight end level, where any of those guys, I think we can all be honest with ourselves and say they could finish ahead of anybody else. I mean, when we were breaking down tiers yesterday, it was kind of like Gronkowski and then maybe Reed in his own, and then about 6 or 7 guys together. So it will be interesting to see. Fleener's had those monster games in his career where he goes out and has a high yardage games and then dies off. So we'll see what he can do in New Orleans. So one of the things we like to do here is bring on some different opinions, educate our listeners. We want them to make good decisions. So we really appreciate Jake Ciely, the All-In Kid. You can find him on Twitter at AllInKid. He's a great follow, and we appreciate you coming on.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate coming on finally.
Hey, absolutely. We'll do it again. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Very good to talk to Jake Ciely, Fantasy Sports Network. Love the guys over there. During the year, we have Chris Meany on quite a bit with the DFS segment. Nando DeFino, Pat Mayo. And
Mayo's showing up here pretty soon.
Are we going to be able to survive him?
Whew.
I don't know.
I'm going to have to drink some energy drinks just to keep up.
I'm going to wear a shield or something like that. I don't know. I need protection against Pat Mayo. But
Love Pat Mayo.
He'll be fun. Yeah, he's great. So we'll have him on as well. All right, let's jump into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Took it easy.
You
there.
made it. You took it easy. You made it through. All right. Like I said before, you got a question, go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click the submit a question button, or you can dial us at 302-464-TFFB. We love answering listener questions. It's why we do this show. It's because of you, your team, your Foot Clan titles. All right, let's go to Andrew in Tampa, Florida. He wrote in, and he said, And this is the question that I meant to get to on the last show.
Yes.
You're like, oh, we're not going to talk about Jimmy Graham right now because we've got a question about it later.
Yeah,
and then we didn't have a
Well,
question
we
about
didn't
it
say when later.
Right.
That's
this
true.
is later.
This is what you meant.
This is a lot later.
How do you think Jimmy Graham will do in his second season in Seattle? I feel like he will be a bigger part of the offense with 1 year under his belt. What do you guys think? Love the show. Thanks, says Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. That knee, man, that's I think pretty much the worst thing that you can have happen to your knee playing football is you tear your patella tendon. We've seen in recent history, we have Ryan Williams from the Cardinals tore his patella in preseason. You never saw him again.
2 years later, he was given a chance at a comeback, and he had just lost a step, and he wasn't ever able to recover, even after having the full extra year off.
Victor Cruz, we are now about 2 years, or maybe a year and a half or so, removed from his tearing his patella tendon.
No, he was going to be ready for week 1 last year, right?
Yeah, he was, and then
So I'm sensing some doubt. Doubt about Jimmy Graham.
There is a high amount of doubt that Jimmy Graham will either play this entire year or if he comes back and effective. I mean,
Here's the
maybe
thing.
the second half of the year, but I'm not feeling it.
Let's put the injury not completely aside, but let's just put that aside a little bit. They are not desperate for Jimmy Graham's immediate return. They have Luke Wilson. And Jimmy Graham was somebody who, during the time he was there, he almost never got near the offensive line. He was split out wide. He was running routes. Luke Wilson does both of those things. Luke Wilson's fine. They can ease Jimmy Graham back if they want to. And it's just, I would just be so surprised to see. Now, some people are reporting around Seattle he's recovering exceptionally well. You'll see him before you expect. It's
like
just really
Victor
hard.
Cruz.
I know.
Yeah, I don't expect. I mean, there's no chance that I will draft Jimmy Graham in a single league this next year.
But he'll be drafted.
He will be drafted, and
what if you could throw him on your IR spot?
Sure. I mean, if you can throw him on your IR spot.
But how high of a pick would you give
I
up?
still probably would. I just don't. I mean, sure, I would use my last pick to throw him on an IR spot.
That's
and
for
then pick
Jerome
someone
Simpson. That's actually, that last pick is only Jerome Simpson.
What is happening?
We're going to a voicemail question.
G'day, fellas. Sean from Australia calling here.
International.
I'm calling from the sunny Queensland. And I just got a question for you regarding my keeper league. I've been part of this league for years. And listen, mates, I got a problem. Everybody keeps bad-mouthing Jeremy Langford, and he's my keeper. I was going to keep him and Jordy Nelson. Now what do I do? I don't have anybody else to keep. I traded away my entire team. And now, listen, I just got a whole bunch of other horrible players. And, mate, I just need some help. So give me an idea. Should I trade back a draft pick and pick up somebody more valuable? Or do I keep Langford?
That's the best way to end a call.
That's the end?
That was the end of the call, was the fantasy football sigh of despair. So the question is really, is Langford a worthy keeper? Do you need to be – let's put it this way. Does our friend from Queensland need to be desperate about his keeper?
Definitely not. There are certain situations – put it this way. We just talked about Thomas Rawls having the possibility of being a bad keeper for Andy. The worst thing he could do right now is to go out and try to dump him for no value because he thinks that, he's not going to return well or do this. And someone scoops up a guy who has that kind of potential when they're buying low, right? It's just like the stock market. You want to buy low and sell high. You're not going to sell high on Langford right now, so you've got to hold on to him and hope that – because there is a path. There is a world here where John Fox, who doesn't like rookies, isn't going to really rely on Howard, the rookie there, and Langford steps into the Matt Forte role. We saw him in 2 games last year put up over 60 fantasy points in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There is the potential here that he could be a good fantasy running back.
Has Kadeem Carey put up 60 in an entire season before?
I doubt it. I don't believe so.
And why am I worrying about Kadeem Carey?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about him. I think maybe we've spoke too low on Langford. The reality is there are some things that could break poorly for him, and there is an avenue ahead of him that could allow him to be an absolute breakout candidate this year.
Your comment about my situation in Rawls is perfect because what could I be doing with Rawls right now? Like, there's no option for you at this point. I mean, I guess the only other option that some owners –
You could trade him to me, Andy. I mean, he's going to stink.
Yeah, see
Oh,
that you got
nice.
somebody who's willing to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Or you could try to take advantage of somebody else who doesn't buy into the news and wants to pay a premium price.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Let me
if
ask you this, throwing it out there. Would you trade Jeremy Langford for Matt Forte?
I'd rather have Langford at this
Yeah,
point.
so would I right now. All right, Ryan in Jamestown says he has the 4th pick in a 10-team league. He projects to get OBJ and Lamar Miller. Both?
That's not too bad.
I like to draft on value. At 24, I could see an issue. I have Brandon Marshall, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper as guys I would be happy with at 24. Running back-wise, I don't see much. Maybe Lacy. What other guys do you think have value with the 24th pick? If those guys are gone, would it be a terrible option to take Aaron Rodgers? I am not taking Sammy Watkins or LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, anti-Buffalo.
Apparently.
He doesn't like those wings, apparently.
I don't know. This is obviously a hard question to answer when you say, who will I be happy with at 24? Because we don't know everybody that will be there.
We can say about, guys that are on at least ADP look like they're going somewhere around there. If Mark Ingram could fall to there and you're worried about running backs, I think that would be a great scoop up personally.
Would you take Ingram or Mike Evans there?
I would probably take Mike Evans, but I guess it depends on how my first couple picks went too, because I'm close on those two guys. In which case, if I had, if I've got OBJ, I'd probably go with Ingram.
All right, let's move on here. Josh in Minnesota. I know you say titles aren't won at the draft, but the commish wants to place more importance on the draft by locking rosters from immediately following the draft through the Tuesday after week 1. How do I convince him that this is completely and utterly ridiculous? Also, do you adjust your quarterback drafting strategy based on how many typically go in the draft? Taking a guy earlier or later if 75% of the league drafts 2 quarterbacks, etc.
Okay, so this is
let's handle them separately there.
Yeah.
I will do the quarterback question. It would, if I knew that 75% of the league is going to draft 2 quarterbacks, then yes, I will grab my guy a little bit earlier. I'm still going to wait because I know that what is considered the lower tier of quarterbacks is still going to be fine. There are so many great quarterback options. If you look at my rankings, I think Romo is crazily around the 20 area, and I would be perfectly fine starting Tony Romo in a 1-quarterback league. So
when they're drafting their second quarterback, somebody else is falling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on top of that, but I will say you don't want to be the guy left holding the bag, right? Where if everyone's taking 2 quarterbacks and all of a sudden there's 20-plus quarterbacks gone and you're like, well, I guess I'm playing Robert Griffin. So it's all about just monitoring the value and finding your spot where there's not an elite player dropping and all those things are factored in.
Yeah, regarding the first question, I always say you don't win championships at the draft. The draft is extremely important.
You build your foundation.
You build your foundation there. You could do some things that will hurt you to be able to make moves in season, but you win it later. And even with this format where he says, hey, the roster is locked until after week 1, it's no different. It doesn't make your draft any more important in reality. Most of the time when you go to week 1, it's pretty much with the team you drafted.
Well, and I was going to say most of the time we recommend you draft so late that it's probably a week gap between those things.
Right. So you're not changing almost anything, and I wouldn't draft any different. And while you can make the argument, I see it that it's ridiculous to do that. There's a little bit of fun in that too. So it's just a matter of preference there.
My argument would be trading makes leagues better.
Right.
More activity makes things better. And if you're locking, say you can't do anything, you're
what is your
hindering.
league? What is your
fun.
league doing?
And
our league generally has at least one to 2 trades between the time of the draft ends and week 1 starts. It just happens because we're so active.
And depending on when you draft, let's say you're drafting, in the middle of the preseason or something. If you want to make the argument about injury. What if a guy gets injured and now you're locked and you can't make the necessary roster moves and pick someone up and drop him when he's out for the year? That's unfair.
All right, Chase in Houston. I'm in a 12-team half-point per reception league, keeper league, where you keep 3 players. I will be keeping Lev Bell in the 6th, Allen Robinson in the 5th.
Okay.
Pretty good start.
He's trying to decide a last keeper. It's either Alshon in the 4th, Eifert in the 11th, or Jordan Mathews in the 12th. So basically,
was that a sigh of hesitation?
It's Alshon Jeffery in the fourth.
It's Alshon Jeffery in the fourth going away.
It is Alshon Jeffery in the fourth going away.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
It's part of it's because you you still got your first 3 rounds. You got Lev Bell in the 6th, Allen Robinson in the 5th.
Yeah, the Eifert in the 11th gives me pause. Just a pause. My answer would still be Alshon.
And your pause gives Jason a grimace. And his
That's
grimace
it's because Jason looks like Grimace.
gives me the creeps.
Yeah.
So
double
don't give me the
insult.
creeps, Mike.
Yeah, my answer is still Alshon. Yeah.
All
Still
right,
Alshon.
Jimbo.
Move on.
Jimbo in Greenwood, South Carolina. Love the show. Started listening last year and won my first title with your help.
Yeah.
Big keeper question. Full PPR 10-man league. C.J. Anderson in the 5th or Duke Johnson. Give me something good, Andy. In the 9th.
Full PPR?
Duke.
Ooh.
Duke.
C.J. Anderson
Wow.
in the 5th.
Oh, please don't answer
Or
that
Duke Johnson.
Anderson
in the
way. A
catches-
full PPR
Anderson
in the 9th?
catches passes. Anderson,
Oh, come on.
He does.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. You think
Not on the level that Duke Johnson
No,
does.
not anywhere close to the level. But C.J. Anderson also runs in touchdowns.
And Devontae Booker will catch passes this year.
I
Maybe.
think I would probably still go with C.J. Anderson.
Oh,
No, here's why. Because you're going to be able to draft Duke Johnson later. I mean,
What?
Duke Johnson.
This is the point where you're talking about the value of a ninth. It's a 9th round pick or a 5th round pick.
It's the answer for me is C.J. Anderson because I believe in him much more strongly than Duke.
So you're saying, Andy, that you would definitely go with
I am Duke going away.
Duke going away.
Going away.
Andy is all about
Well, look, I mean,
taking a
dude.
Duke.
It's not. We just talked about this, right? I had
Yeah.
to defend Duke
Oh,
Johnson
yeah.
on the last show, and I have Duke Johnson at number
I'm going to go to
19.
the Ultimate Draft Kit.
Look, man, you
Down
guys
I know.
here.
I'm
you
doing
guys
this.
plowed right through my poop joke, and it was really, really good, and that disappoints me.
Yeah, we have to plow through a few of those. Biff.
Every show.
Look, I have C.J. Anderson ranked 22.
Yeah, you hate Anderson.
And I have Duke Johnson ranked 19. So now you're giving me my 19th guy in the 9th round or my 22nd guy in the 5th round. I think you know my answer.
At least you're consistent with yourself.
Yeah. Well,
And honestly, I think both are good values. So I don't have a problem taking Duke because if you tell me, would you like Duke Johnson in the 9th round in a PPR, I would say 100%. Yes, sign me up for that. But I would also like, and I'm not a big fan of C.J. Anderson this year, relatively speaking, for where he's going and where some people are pushing him up.
no, he's your favorite player.
We just
All right.
talked about that with Jake Ciely.
Aaron in North.
Yeah, don't you put that on me.
No, he's your guy. He's your guy now. Aaron in North Carolina. Hey guys, love the show.
Hey,
Simple question for you: who do you like better in 2016, Jeremy Hill or Gio Bernard? In PPR,
ooh,
which round would you take either of them?
I can tell you, I project Jeremy Hill to have more points than Gio in a PPR to have more points, but I'm actually going to still side with Gio on this because what you're going to have in a PPR is you're going to have a consistent guy in Gio Bernard that you get much later than Jeremy Hill as far as average draft position, and they're not the point spread that I've got them for on the Ultimate Draft Kit is not that far apart. I mean, they're separated. Jeremy Hill's a little bit ahead. Gio's pretty close behind, but I feel like week in, week out, you're going to have more consistency with the pass catching back.
It's Gio for me in a PPR league, absolutely.
yeah, I think the answer is Gio for me. But I have a question for you guys. We have a change in offensive coordinator, and it was clear that Hugh Jackson had his roles pretty defined of who he thought should do what. With the new OC, do you think there is a chance that he says, bollocks to all that role thing, I want one guy?
No,
Not when you've got.
not unless that guy's Gio Bernard. I don't think that there's a chance that Gio Bernard is a professional and he's productive. He's a part of that team. So
Yeah.
the only guy that's had any attitude issues on that team has been Jeremy Hill.
It's a worthy.
So and
whoa. He's not the only guy. He's the only running back on that
in
team.
full
though.
PPR,
They got some issues.
in our full PPR scoring, we have Gio as the consensus 26, Jeremy Hill the consensus 28.
Yeah, I would go Gio.
So you have them basically tied in PPR. It's very close. So Brandon in Mansfield, Ohio. Mansfield. Tough decision on who to keep. I'm in a 2-player keeper league, and I'm keeping Thomas Rawls, who's undrafted. And I can't decide between Andrew Luck in the 8th or Kevin White, undrafted.
I'm assuming that an undrafted player gets kept basically for free.
Yeah, that's probably true. And I need my obligatory.
Yeah, I know.
Dumb rule.
I knew that was coming. Let's answer these ones quick here because we're getting towards the end of the show.
I would take Andrew Luck in the
I would
8th.
take Kevin White.
And I would tie break with Andrew Luck here.
All right, Jake in Grand Rapids. What are your opinions on Stefon Diggs? Where do you see him going in drafts, and is he worth drafting over Kevin White?
I would rather have Kevin White.
So would I.
100% yes.
And is he worth drafting very late?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stefon Diggs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very late. The same way that you would take a flyer on a Brandon Coleman or something.
I'll say this. You want me to give you a name that I would rather have on my team than Stefon Diggs? Who is
better
going
not
on...
say Jerome Simpson.
No. I know where this is going.
No, you think you know where he thinks I'm going with the Browns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I am going with Brandon LaFell. Completely overlooked. I mean, thrown out to the garbage dump. And I like Tyler Boyd, but I'm just saying.
The conductor,
well, he was pulled in from the garbage dump, so it's a very familiar
of
location.
the Tyler Boyd Express is
just
saying draft Brandon LaFell.
All right, let's move on. Big Will, and that's an interesting take. We'll make you defend that for an entire show.
Okay.
Big Will from Knoxville in Knoxville, Tennessee. Yep. Is there another Knoxville? Ryan Mathews or Latavius Murray? Who's better and why? Thanks, guys. And he's voting for us on Podcast Awards.
Thanks, Big Will.
That's a great question. I'm still going to stick with Latavius Murray.
My rankings tell me that I'm going to go with Ryan Mathews. And my rankings are based on the depth chart in Philly right now. So I think that there's every chance that I'm with you. I think by the beginning of the season, it'll be Latavius.
My rankings, my heart, my mind, my body says Ryan Mathews.
You're a unified man, Mike.
I'm all together right now.
Yeah. So, well, Mike, are you going to get into your special story on the show after the show?
If my voice holds up, I will.
So we're done with the show today. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure you vote for us on podcastawards.com. We appreciate it. We love you guys. We'll be doing a lot of special stuff, a lot of special giveaways all summer long. We'll catch you next week. And stay tuned for the show after the show on YouTube. Take care.
Goodbye. Podcastawards.com.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.